Hi, so today we're going to be installing the Grafana server and we're going to be adding a template for Linux hosts. I've got my Grafana server that's a CentOS 10 stream version. I've already done my updates, so let's get going. First thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the bash RC, and this is just a preference for my PS1. Then we're going to be doing our updates. These should already be completed. I've done them previously, so it should just be checking to see if there are any new ones. It does seem like there are a few new ones. So we'll probably just cut this out. That wasn't too bad. Another step I've been adding in is to just ensure that the date is correct. So I'm going to be doing currently see make step just to ensure that the time is up to date with the NTP server. Just because there's going to be talking to other servers in our lab, so we don't want them having conflicts because of times. We're going to go and we're going to set the SE Linux to permissive. At some point we'll go over enforcing SE Linux. At this point it's just not worth it, not for labs. And for prod it's also debatable. I know that's a bit of a touchy subject. We're going to go add some host records for the other IPs in our labs. So now if we go and we ping ActiveMQ, it'll get the right IP. If we go and we ping Zabbix, it'll get the right IP. And if we ping itself Grafana, it'll get the right IP. We're going to install Grafana straight from the CentOS 10 stream repo. Your version may be a bit different when you're doing this. Wasn't too bad at all. We're going to enable and start the service. And then just confirm that it is running successfully. The port that our Grafana by default for the web UI is going to be using is port 3000. So we're not going to change that currently. At some point, we'll create a proxy server so that we have one URL that we go to for all our services. But for the time being, we're just going to use the defaults. We'll add port 3000 for TCP and reload it so that it's permanent. Just confirm that it's there. Okay, it is there, and if we do a listening, we should be able to see that it is listening on port 3000 for Grafana. So now we should be able to access our Grafana instance. On port 3000/login, the default will be admin and admin. And I'm going to skip changing the password for now and just leave it as admin admin. This will be your default dashboard when you log in. On the left-hand side is where you will see all your administration if you're an admin user. Obviously, if you're not an admin user, you wouldn't be able to see the administration, connections, etc. Your dashboards would sit under the dashboards. The administration would be where you'd be able to set up your LDAP, your teams, your users, all your extra plugins that you want to use, and your connections is quite important. This is where you'd be defining all your data sources and connections. So if you're connecting from RDS instances or other databases or from Zabbix, like we will be doing, we'll be doing it from the connections tab. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to enable the Zabbix plugin. The Zabbix plugin, if we come to administration, plugins and data, plugins, we should be able to search for Zabbix. And I see we missed steps here. That's why we're having the issue. So from the Grafana CLI plugins install Alexander Zoblin Zabbix app. So this will install the Zabbix plugin from the CLI. And then once it's installed, we just need to restart the Grafana server. Okay, cool. Let's go back to home, plugins. Should be able to find the Zabbix plugin now. And we're going to enable it. Cool. It's actually quite a nice little plugin. It pulls all the telemetry from, okay, my Zabbix instance isn't running, so I think we're going to have to start that one up. Do a headless start, and let's do a headless start on our ActiveMQ instance as well. Cool. We've enabled the Zabbix plugin. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be using the Zabbix data source, and we're going to be populating it with all of this information. So what we're wanting to do is, let's go back to home, connections, data source, and we want to add a new data source. The data source that we're going to be using is Zabbix. We can give it a better name than this. So I'll use the zabbix.local.lab so that we know which host it's coming from. The URL is going to be whatever your Zabbix instance is, /Zabbix /API underscore JSON RPC.php. This is where it's getting all the JSON information for the telemetry that it's going to be populating. Authentication, I'm going to use no authentication. We're going to skip the TLS cert. We're going to use a username and password, and we're going to be using the admin username and password. You can create another username and password specifically for this. For our instance, we're just going to use the admin login for Zabbix. So that would be on Zabbix in users over here. We're going to be using our Zabbix user. And then we should be able to come down to save and test. If you get the green at the bottom over here, this is good news. If it shows you a red box, it'll generally give you an error, or you'll need to go into your Grafana logs just to see what the error is. Now that we have the connection, we can create a dashboard. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to import one of the dashboards. So normally you'd be able to create your dashboard, add your visualization, select your data source. This can get quite complex and quite time consuming. If you go to the Grafana website, there is a bunch of templates that you can use. So we're going to be taking advantage of that, and we're going to be importing a dashboard for Linux hosts. I've got it here in the repository already. So I'm just going to copy and paste that there, or you could just upload the file over here. Zabbix full service status. This will be the name of the dashboard. The folder that it's going to go into, we don't have folders set up as yet, so it'll just go into the default dashboards folder. And the data source that we want to use is going to be the zabbix.local.lab for the data. And import. It's not a bad dashboard. It's got quite a lot of information here. The one thing that you do need to take note of is once you've imported it, it's going to take a while before it starts pulling through information. This will pull data every so often, or Grafana will pull the data from Zabbix every so often. So until it's pulled through a few minutes of data, it's going to be showing as nothing is happening. But we'll be able to see over here from Zabbix all the hosts that we have. So we know that we have a zabbix.local.lab, and we know we have an activemq.local.lab. And if we install the Zabbix agent onto our Grafana server, then we'll be able to run that here as well. So I'm going to just pause it for the moment so that we can wait for some dates to populate, and then we can see what it looks like. Okay, so it looks like this is my fault that it's not populating because my lab VMs have been off for a while, their dates are incorrect. So even though the date on my Grafana server was correct, my other servers was showing 25th of December, so it wasn't pulling through any data. I've corrected the dates on them now. So if we give it a few minutes, we should be able to pull through some data. Actually, let's just sign out and sign back in. And let's restart Grafana actually. Hmm. So we can see it is pulling through data here. So our data source is correct. Let's go back to the dashboard. And there we go, we're finally getting some data through. So it looks like the dates being different on them would obviously cause an issue, but that was the root cause of the issue. So if we had groups here, we've got Linux servers and we've got Zabbix servers. You could also have database servers, depending on what's defined on your Zabbix server, because this is all pulled through from Zabbix. So we just select all over here. This would be our active MQ local lab, and this would be our Zabbix server. Some of these templates do go out of date quite often, so you'll see when you do hit refresh, you'll see some errors popping up. Some items get depreciated and you need to go in and change them. So this is just because it's looking at a time frame that it doesn't have at the moment. So let's give it back to the last 1 minute. There we go. Starting to think I don't like this template. It's not very stable. But anywho, we found this fairly useful. You're able to see the problems for the amount of time that are shown on Zabbix. You're able to see the network throughput, incoming and outgoing. Discrete I/O is quite useful as well. Not sure why space utilization isn't pulling through. It's probably one of the errors or the functions that have been deprecated in the new Grafana. So this template needs to be updated, or you can create your own one. I think the same thing for space utilization over here. This drives one, logged in users, but it's got the basics. Cool. Thanks. Cheers.